G'day once again, and welcome to the newest edition in the game of life. Today we're going to talk about the living and the dead. Now, this game of life we've been on, unfortunately we didn't get given all the rules to the game. And you know what it's like when you try and play a game where someone else knows all the rules and you don't. You're guaranteed you're not going to win. So I've been researching this for a long time now and trying to help you all out in the game of life to do your own research and hopefully this assists you in learning some of the intricacies of the rules of life. Okay, now when you don't know the rules and someone gives you a pack of cards and say, right, what, we're going to play this game, they know all the rules and you don't. I guarantee I know who's going to win, and it won't be us. So we need to learn the truth, and the truth will set us free. Now it all begins with registering the child, and unfortunately they don't give us all the clues. They just say you must register your child, and they don't tell us that we're registering it with a private society, and that there are benefits and there are downfalls with registering your child in this private society. So we have to learn a little bit more about what is happening when we do register a child. Now, the government will give us a receipt for our property in the form of a birth certificate. Now, if you want to look a bit further, you'll find that the bailee in possession is the one who is holding on to the property, and the title is kept with the Land Information New Zealand. So there's also a few other little bits to the puzzle, but no need to delve into them today. Okay, there is, however, another form that they don't like disclosing. Now, in New Zealand here, it's called the printout. In Australia, it's the extract. England, it's the extract. Not sure what it is in Canada, but I think it's the live birth certificate in America. Now, the reason they don't like disclosing it is because that holds the details of the living on it. The receipt that we get is for the dead. Now, this is what our one, or in fact my one, looks like. This is a New Zealand birth certificate, and I want to point something out to you here. And it says first or given name, William Henry. But then there is a separation. There is another name there, which for a long time I thought was my name. But it's a surname. It's not my name. I was only given William Henry, but for some reason, by using this certificate as a means of identification, even though it tells you on the bottom not to use it as a means of identification, and it's got no photos on it, so it doesn't identify anyone apart from a deceased estate. Okay, and the reason it identifies a deceased estate is that your twin died at birth. Your twin died at birth, the placenta or the afterbirth died. You were born first, the placenta followed, the afterbirth followed, and that died. So this is what the Turner is registered as, is the afterbirth. So they set up a deceased estate for it. Okay. Now, if you look at the printout, you'll see this is the born details that your parents wrote, or your mother or your father, when they registered us. They filled out the details, and then the registrar, this is a copy of what he wrote in his or her book. And you'll notice there that that's all I was given, William Henry. There's no surname. There is no surname for me on that document. It has got my parents' names on it, but not my name. Now, there's something else too that I must point out to you, and that's here. Normally, when you apply for this, you will only get the red stamp. It took us a lot of time, effort, and coercion to get the certified true copy. Now, you will need that. Unless it's a certified true copy, you cannot surrender this document to set yourself free. So you will need, that's if you want to get out of the game of life, of course. Okay, now take careful note that the born details show I just showed you that I was given a name and the birth certificate added the surname. All right, so now we know that there is a difference between those two documents. We now know which one we can surrender to set ourselves free. But let's take a step backward. Which document did you use to open a bank account? And driver's license? Guarantee you used the birth certificate because that's the one that they programmed us into believing that we had to produce. Okay, and that's the one that belongs to a separate society, and we must, to set ourselves free from this society, if you want to, get rid of all these things. Now, I told you earlier that the afterbirth died, so the government is administering a deceased estate, okay, in the name of the father. Okay, now if we claim our benefits under the name of that state, we then have to pay administration costs because they're doing all the work for us and raising, and boy, they do raise some money. I've seen how many billions is in my my account. If you go onto SEC online, you'll find just how much is in there, and they are making a great amount. So if we want to get out, if you do want to get out, you need to correct the record. Well, there's several things you need to do. You'll need to correct the record, and you'll need to do this. And Jesus answering said unto them, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. Okay? Now, it took me many years to figure out what was Caesar and what were Caesar's. And then it hit me that those belong to Caesar. So we must send them back or surrender them. Render is just short for surrender. So we must surrender all the documents that belong to Caesar back to him to set ourselves free. Now, at the same time, we may decide to declare our titles. Seeing we're not going to have a name, we may want to declare our royal styles and titles. And I think that would be a good thing. And we would also need to indemnify ourselves. So we would need an indemnity bond. So we would have to issue a bond to Treasury, and we would have to give certain orders to the Treasury with that bond in order to indemnify ourselves, because we can't just go out there and say, for example, you had a car accident and one of their services, which is the ambulance, came out to pick you up. How are you going to pay for that? So if you indemnify yourself with a bond, the Treasury, they can pick that up from Treasury, no problem at all. Okay, I guess some of you don't know what a bond is, so we better have a look. Now, in New Zealand, because I'm only doing this for New Zealand, but I know a lot of people watch it overseas, so you'll have to have a look at your own legislation and that. But bonds are used to secure the performance of various statutory obligations. Now, I want you to look at this bit here. And bonds are commonly used under the Guardianship Act 1968 to ensure the return of children from overseas. Now, in previous videos, I've told you that we were lost overseas, and we were children. So now, if we're going to come back to life, we need to have a bond, and we need to get rid of the guardians that are looking after us. Okay, this is the actual act here. This act may be cited as the Guardianship Act 1968, and it comes into force in 1970. Okay, Section 7, Testamentary Guardians. Now, I need to explain a little bit further what testamentary means. Normally, it is in line with your last will and testament, but you don't just need a last will and testament, because everything is done by your will. No matter what it is done by your will. And if you look here, may by deed or will appoint any person to be a guardian. So we don't have to accept their guardians. We can appoint anyone to become the guardian. And I think that would be a good thing, because we could appoint people to do specific jobs for us, and once we've got our bond in place, they will be paid. Now, to go further into the bond, I always go to Bovia's online first, mainly because it's accessible to everyone online, and it's also one of the oldest law dictionaries. So that's the address line up there. Go and have a look at bond. Have a look at any of the other words that you're uncertain of, because they all have a different meaning in the legal system. Lawfully, we can use whatever words we want, but if we want to enter into their system or give them directions, we need to use the correct terminology. Now, I'm not going to give you the wording for the orders and the instructions on the bond. You're going to have to look that up yourself. Pretty easy to find online, and one of the best is Winston Shrout. He's done a lot of work on bonds. Certainly helped me in my research over the years was his bonds. He's got it down to an art form, the bonds. So go online and have a look at what Winston Shrout says, look at other people's, and then put your own words on. Now, here's the key. The birth certificates, every birth certificate you order has a different number on the back. And the reason for that is that it is a share certificate. It is your share of the commonwealth. All the money from all of us slaves gets put into a common fund, and we all have a share of the commonwealth of the country. Okay, so you print your bond on the back of a birth certificate, and that is going to be recognized by the Treasury when you send it into the Treasury. Okay, so now we've got to stay in the private, and that is the hard part, because staying in the private, you have to do all your own administration. You will get left alone after a while as soon as they know that you're in the private, or you tell them. But the two keys to it is that you must come in peace, and you must inform them that it is our will. Okay? We come in peace, and it is our will to do whatever we want to do, as long as we are not harming others. Okay, I hope that helps, and good luck on your journey.